Sunday night, I asked her to not stay up super late because of her coming to work with me in the morning to do her summer school. She said, okay. I told her good night and I love you. I went to bed, not realizing that that was going to be the last time I saw her.
We're best friends.
Yeah. We're going to shake it again.
I woke up to notice she wasn't in her bed. I'm in my heart trying not to lose my mind because I don't know where she is. I finally remembered her phone had a location on, and her phone was pinging just 2 minutes down the road, right behind the skate park. I start driving to the direction the phone was being pinged at, and I see a couple cop cars with lights on. I see yellow tape, and immediately my heart drops and sinks to the bottom of my stomach. My daughter's hands and ankles were both bound. She was strangled to death, left with no pants. And I know in my heart, she fought incredibly hard. She was not going down without a fight.
We begin with two men we're learning are charged with capital murder tonight, accused of killing a 12-year-old girl.
Police say these men strangled her before dumping her into that creek. Both men were in the country illegally.
Apprehended, then released by Border Patrol less than 3 weeks before Jocelyn's death. The men accused of killing Jocelyn Nungare are affiliated with the gang known for brutal violence.
Kamala Harris was in charge of immigration in our borders. If we had better border policies and not open borders and not these catch and release policies, I truly believe this all could have been prevented. Under her being vice president of this country, my daughter's life was ripped away from her. She had her entire life ahead of her.
Happy birthday, dear Jocelyn.
My daughter is 6 feet in the ground based off of policies that she allowed to keep. Kamala Harris did have one job, and she not only failed, not me, she failed my daughter, she failed Jocelyn. You know, she was only 12. President Trump reached out, gave me his sincerest condolences as not a former president, but just as a father, someone who cares. I believe Donald Trump needs to be back in office. I can at least know that my next child will be safe in this country.
And tonight, in a brand new interview, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is telling CNN's Christiane Amanpour that Donald Trump will likely be the Republican nominee.
I think they are intimidated. They oftentimes, say and do things which they know better than to say or do. And it will require us defeating those most extreme measures and the people who promote them. There wasn't this little tail at extremism wagging the dog of the Republican Party. Maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen.
And how do you do that? Because you said you have to defeat them by defeating their leader. Their leader is Donald Trump. Even you have said that you expect him to be the Republican nominee. How does this change at all?
And sadly, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, who has no credibility left by any measure.
gentlemen, this is Pablo Pacheco, and it looks like we got it right this time. For those of you on the Rumble platform, welcome. For those of you on YouTube, welcome. It's good to see you guys. I hope that you guys had a great Mother's Day. For those of you that celebrated in Latin America, Feliz Dia de las Madres, aunque ya pasó ayer. But the good thing is it's another day of health. It's another day of life. Que más que. We can't complain, ladies and gentlemen. Even though some people would like to complain quite a bit. And we see exactly what the complainings are about, ladies and gentlemen, when we see the GoFundMes that are up. What GoFundMes are up, ladies and gentlemen? Well, it's a good thing that you asked that. The GoFundMes that I'm referring to are that of Carmelo Anthony. Now, Juan, why would Carmelo Anthony need a GoFundMe? He played for the Denver Nuggets. No. Frenate. Not that Carmelo Anthony, ladies and gentlemen. Not that Carmelo. It's a high school student here in Frisco, Texas, that unalived a person in Frisco. By the way, if you notice that I'm talking with code words, it's because I'm on the YouTube platform. There are certain things that we're not allowed to say on the YouTube platform, and I don't want to get the channel yanked again. In either case, digressing. Carmelo Anthony, the high school student, unalived a person, got arrested for suspicion of unaliving that particular person. And the end result, ladies and gentlemen, was that he raised over $500,000. Yes, that's right. He raised over $500,000, ladies and gentlemen. And a lot of people would argue that it's not right that he raised all that money. How in the hell could he raise all of that money? He's a unaliver. He committed an unaliving. He doesn't deserve any of it. Now, real quick, ladies and gentlemen, I will say, you know what? Normally I would agree, but I want him to have a robust defense. Why do I want him to have a robust defense? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is because when there is a robust defense, it decreases the chances that there is an F up in the courtroom, which means once the conviction occurs, and it will occur, ladies and gentlemen, he will have his appeals denied. The likelihood of his appeals being denied would increase because he had a robust legal defense. So I don't mind them raising that money. What I do mind, and what a lot of other people mind, is where he supposedly spent that money. Some speculate that he spent that money on a Cadillac Escalade. Okay, I guess whatever. Some speculate that he spent that money on a new house. Well, to be fair, he was allegedly receiving death threats, so I can understand that. But a lot of people are saying, well, you know what? We're done here. We're done here. We don't understand why he should get all of that money. He committed a crime. My justification's out the window, ladies and gentlemen. They hold a press conference, and guess who shows up at the press conference? The victim's father. And ladies and gentlemen, there was their opportunity, the NGAN. NGAN, I call them the Timu Al Sharpton Network. They had an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to bring that father up with them and switch the theme. We lost a son, you lost a son. I know that you're grieving right now. You might have animosity, but to let you know, we are praying for you. Did they do that? Nope. They responded by cordially kicking him out in the press conference. Matter of fact, he ended up getting escorted out with the cops. And the theme was, it was respectful. Oh, the irony.
You big dummy.
Oh, the irony, because once the trial is underway, and underway it will go, and I hope that video footage of the trial is available, because if that's the case, I will be streaming it here on Rumble, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that the father got escorted out is going to be used against Carmelo Anthony. Mark my words. Mark my words. But is that the end all to be all of this situation?
A few moments later.
Minnesota 5 entered the chat, who caught a black child rummaging through her diaper bag, wherein she called that black child the N-word. I can't say what that word is because I'm on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't want my channel yanked again. But ladies and gentlemen, she called this child the N-word. The guy that was recording her decided to attempt to put her on blast. Ladies and gentlemen, that backfired spectacularly. She, ladies and gentlemen, raised over $1 million. And a lot of people that donated said, you know what? You guys are able to use this word against each other, and there's no problem. However, you want to kick our asses by us saying the N-word. And this girl on the video said, and I quote, well, if he's going to act like an N-word, he's going to be called the N-word. I don't like that word, but I love the First Amendment. At the same time, there might be private consequences. You could lose your job, things like that. Well, that happened to her, supposedly. Supposedly, she was under death threats. Supposedly, she had other people call her out. And supposedly, she had to go into hiding. End result, she raised $1 million, giving the person that tried to shame her a little bit of that
emotional damage.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They backfired spectacularly. And now, as a result, there is a new theme coming around, ladies and gentlemen, and that theme is black fatigue. What is this black fatigue, we might ask? As soon as this bad boy decides to share, I'll go ahead and show you what this black fatigue is all about. Ladies and gentlemen, this black fatigue is something that is new to the vernacular. Probably my kid knew about it already, but I didn't. Therefore, I digress. I'm learning about it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you get to learn about it with me. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a gentleman that's going to talk a little bit about this black fatigue, if you will. And then after that, we're going to go to a couple of other people, specifically my man, Anton Daniels, a prominent YouTuber, prominent entrepreneur. Did his thing in Querétaro a couple of weeks ago. He saw exactly what I love about that city. But ladies and gentlemen, here we are with what this gentleman here has to say before we get into what Anton has to say, ladies and gentlemen. Got to give this guy a little bit of credit. At least he's calling out the BS for what it is, right? Got to give him a little bit of credit. And he's right, ladies and gentlemen. He's right, ladies and gentlemen. What was the code? No snitching or whatever the hell that bullshit was. No snitching, none of this, none of the other, blah, 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 blah. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is a no snitching code, you basically defeated yourselves. We'll just put it like that. You basically defeated yourselves. And at that particular point, you run into people like myself who you kicked out of the community because my last name is Pacheco. That's fine. I'm Boricua, and a friend of mine from Mayagüez me dijo una cosa. I'm going to say it in Spanish and then I'll say it in English. This was at a Latin Jazz Fest about 14 years ago in the city that I live in. He said, "No importa si tienes un gote de sangre boricua, tú eres boricua. Bienvenido a la familia. Doesn't matter if you have a drop of Puerto Rican blood, you're Puerto Rican. You're one of us," he said. Ladies and gentlemen, so I got kicked out. My card got revoked, but I got accepted into the other community, and I'm family. But at the same time, assuming that I were in this other community, despite having the black phenotype, the kinky hair, it is what it is. My mom is black. By the way, father's Puerto Rican, grandfather born on the island. My father was actually Nuyoriqueño. My grandfather was born near Bayamon. So it's all good. But the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, the thing is, at least he's calling it out. But the problem is, if I were in that community, I wouldn't even want to be in that community. Because if I were to say something, it would be, "Oh, you're a coon, you're a sellout, you're this, that, and the third." And there are a couple of people that have gotten sick and tired of it. My man, John Galt, follow the John Galt channel. My friends at Fallback Productions, by the way, purchase some merchandise at fallbackusa.myshopify.com. They got the gear, ladies and gentlemen. They've also walked away from that. Matter of fact, my friends, they're interracial. My friend Dave Kluken, a white guy, his wife Lucretia Hughes Kluken, a black girl. It is what it is. And they can't say, "Well, Pacheco, you're racist also." Dude, my first girlfriend was black. My second girlfriend was white. I've dated and married Mexicans ever since. I don't know. So racism, I'm not. But ladies and gentlemen, if I were to say, "Hey, this guy's guilty of sin," they wouldn't let me hear the end of it. I would be read the riot act. So I have to give this guy credit again. He's calling it out for what it is. These guys did what they did. They did what they did. And I went over that on the previous stream, ladies and gentlemen. But I digress. You know why they're finally speaking up? Because they're no longer afraid, right, ladies and gentlemen? The thing is this. You have a whole bunch of people that would yell, "You're a racist," at the drop of a dime. And 10 years ago, that would have cost you your job. That would have cost you your livelihood. Papa John's lost his job as CEO. The guy that actually started Papa John's, the pizza place, because he used the N-word in a hypothetical, ladies and gentlemen. And the hypothetical was how you treat people. How are you supposed to treat your customers? And how are you supposed to treat other employees? And how are you supposed to treat your executives on the C-suite? That's all that he was doing. But he used the N-word, racism, lost his stock options, lost his job. Another executive went from making multi-million dollars salaries a year to food stamps in less than 15 months. The same thing. So of course they can't say it. They can't call you out on your bullshit, so to speak. And the reason why they can't is because they would have been canceled. No job. Your social media accounts would have been obliterated. You would have been the equivalent of unpersoned. Now, Juan, what is this unpersoned? If you don't know what unpersoned is, I would advise that you read 1984 and you'll understand exactly what the term unpersoned is. But I digress. Let's continue, shall we? How ironic that this guy calls out all of the people that I listen to when I have downtime. Shout out to the quartering, by the way. Shout out to the drink champs, ladies and gentlemen. But he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Another example of that would be George Floyd. By the way, in my honest opinion, Derek Chauvin was unjustly convicted. I believe that he was convicted, ladies and gentlemen, not because of the facts of the case, because in my honest opinion, hashtag not legal advice, hashtag this is coming from a person that has a Juris Doctor's degree. So it's what my opinion is might not necessarily reflect that of anybody else based on the training that I received over 3 years after getting my college degrees, 2 bachelors and a JD. But I think that causation was not certain. And the reason why causation was not certain was because George Floyd chewed on a speedball, which was a fentanyl-laced ball of cocaine, prior to dying on the scene, ladies and gentlemen. More or less, let's say that there could have been something for Derek Chauvin to be convicted on. Okay, fair enough. I didn't see the entire trial. I saw some of it, compliments of Nick Rekieta. By the way, shout out to Nick Rekieta. Follow his channel at Rekieta Law. But ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dowell, this was the guy that was doing traffic crowd control. They convicted him. Really? They convicted him. Like, dude, what the hell was he supposed to do? He couldn't let the angry mob loose, because if he would have said, hey, let me go ahead and turn him over, and let me go ahead and turn this black man over, and let's go ahead and get him some help, the crowd would have been all over those 3 officers. But he got convicted. That conviction was I won't go there. But now the time is coming that people have had it. People have had it. And when it comes to people calling other people out, now's the time for it. I wouldn't have been able to say George Floyd chewed on a speedball 5 years ago, even though I did say, when I did have a Facebook account, that causation was not certain. If I would have continued saying that during the trial, I could have potentially received the mob beatdown as everybody else was receiving. They were getting canceled, ladies and gentlemen. The figurative beatdown, not literal. The cancellation, the unpersoning. Well, now people are getting sick and tired of it. Sick and tired indeed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go over the hidden case a little bit, real quick, because I have a little bit of a difference of opinion on that one. The difference of opinion that I have, ladies and gentlemen, is because I have 2 legal questions at hand. Again, hashtag not legal advice. Hashtag this is based on my education as a Juris Doctor. But the thing is this: my question is, was Hinton pointing the gun at the officers when he was unalived in the back, or was he not? There's a difference between having a gun on you and brandishing the gun. And for context, brandishing the gun is when you point the gun at somebody in a menacing way. It's like, you know what, I'm going to do such and such and such and such if you don't do such and such. That's brandishing, right? So my question is was he brandishing the weapon? What if he was brandishing the weapon, ladies and gentlemen? Then we got a problem. And in my opinion, the unaliving was justified. If he didn't brandish the weapon, but he had it on him and it fell, as some reports say, the weapon falls, he picks up the weapon and runs. There was no evidence that this guy was a public safety threat, and the unaliving was not justified. However, it does not justify what his father did to the other officer. Again, as that gentleman said, he proceeded to, quote unquote, pick up the weapon and run. Again, my question is, did he brandish the weapon at the officers? If he did, bye-bye, que le vaya bien. No cool points for you. If he didn't, we have a problem. But this is one of those, Father, don't do anything stupid. Just shut the F up, sit the F down, calm the F down, and count your settlement money. Hashtag not legal advice. But ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't justify what Hinton did. You don't steal a car. You don't jack a car from somebody. Sorry. Doesn't justify what Carmelo Anthony did. And again, that one is pending, and we're going to stream that live, ladies and gentlemen, if it is available, if the court hearings are available. Salute to that young man, ladies and gentlemen. Salute to that young man, ladies and gentlemen. I will toast to that. Salud la familia. Ladies and gentlemen, what he's saying is that black fatigue, I think his thesis is that black fatigue is nothing more than people being judged on the bullshit that they do. Last I checked, there was a guy, it was a black man, in 1961 that had a dream that one day black brothers and sisters would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Translation, you're responsible for the bullshit that you do, basically, is what he was saying. And you know what? I salute that. I salute that. But Juan, he's not white. He's just code talking for the white people. Funny that you asked that. Funny that you mentioned that, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to go ahead and bring up somebody else that has a comment regarding black fatigue. And this guy is a white guy, so that argument goes out the window. Is this me, or does this guy sound so much like Be Brave? By the way, there's a channel by the name of Be Brave and Think. I would encourage that you guys watch it. I will say it's not for the faint of heart. People, caution advised. Some of his viewpoints will piss you off. But this guy sounds just like him. I kid you not, ladies and gentlemen. But here we go. Here's more of what he has to say. I would have to agree with that sentiment, considering the fact that I have a best friend that I grew up with, a childhood best friend that I grew up with, officiated he and his wife's renewing of their vows a couple of years ago as they completed their 20th wedding anniversary, ladies and gentlemen. And he and his family were some of the least racist people that I've had the pleasure of meeting. Matter of fact, if I ever get back to South Carolina and they're still out there in South Carolina, I'd like to go out and invite them to brisket yet again. These are some of the most upstanding people that I've had the pleasure of meeting. And can you say as you blame them, ladies and gentlemen? Can you say as you blame them? I wouldn't necessarily be able to blame them. And the reason why I would not be able to blame them, ladies and gentlemen, is because you have people that are claiming that certain things are racist when they are not. And those people, in my honest opinion, can catch a little bit of this
emotional damage.
Worse than that, they can go straight to hell, in my honest opinion. Why do you say that, Juan? I say that for the following reason, ladies and gentlemen. It's because you have somebody that does something stupid. Let's say that they purchase some perico, right? They get busted by the officers for purchasing the perico. And, oh, it's because I'm black. Really? Get the fuck out of here. You didn't get arrested because you're black. You got arrested because you got caught buying perico. A crime. Sorry, it is what it is. Oh, nobody wants to hang out with me because I'm black. Maybe it's because you showed your ass one too many times and people decided to disassociate themselves with you. Yes, that happened with me as well. I've learned some really, really hard lessons and I lost quite a few friends that are very valuable people. I don't want to do that again. So I learned that lesson, take that lump. And the mantra is, if they want to be friends later on, that's on them. If they don't, that's on them. But it was my fault that the falling out began. Don't make the same mistake twice. It's not because I'm mixed, I'm black and Latino. Fuck out of here. I'm not. That's not necessarily the case. And you know what? Those people haven't dealt with real racism. We'll put it like that. Real racism. I remember talking to my stepfather and his parents. May they all rest in peace. My stepfather told me stories of how when they tried to integrate blacks and whites in the school systems in North Carolina, that they actually bombed the school board buildings. Yes, that actually happened. The school district that I went to in North Carolina as a kid, 20 years before I was born, that building got bombed. I kid you not. They talked about how you couldn't work at certain places, or you had to go around the back when the white guys were coming. That was racism. My grandmother talking about the bus stories. Yes, that actually happened. I thought that was bullshit. Really? You actually had to go to the back of the bus? And she was like, yeah, I actually had to go back to the back of the bus. That actually happened. My mother telling me the stories of how they had to send everybody home because of the Little Rock Central High School incident when they started integrating black people into that particular school. And Lord, the mob showed up, and the mob showed up in force. And this wasn't the, well, you know what? Their attitude is the reason why we're not messing with them, or their tendencies are not why we don't want them here. No, it was just they have black skin. We don't want any quote unquote negras mixing with us white folk. That actually happened. That's true racism. Not I got arrested because I got caught with some perico in my pocket, or I got busted robbing a gas station, or I fit the description of a car thief. Ladies and gentlemen, the latter is not racism. And these people saying that it is what's tiring people out. And I'll be quite honest. I'll be quite honest, ladies and gentlemen. Let me go ahead and go frente a frente real quick. Ladies and gentlemen, the problem that causes will impact people like myself. It will impact people like my kid, and it will impact people like my brother and his kids. The reason why I say that is because we're mixed. I'm black and I'm Puerto Rican. Que bonita bandera. You know, the problem is we're stuck in a situation of where do we hang out with, and my kid, who also has, you know, the other mix. I call my kid my little tres leches because my kid is also Mexican by descent, has family in Nuevo León, has family in Tamaulipas, has family in Baja California, right? So that you guys are messing it up for us. And it's basically you guys pick a side, or you know what, we're going to put you in the middle of nowhere. But more importantly than that, the problem becomes that they take their frustrations out on us and we're like, hey, we ain't got a dog in the fight. Ladies and gentlemen, hey, my girlfriend's Mexican. My brother, his wife is a white woman. We don't have a dog in the fight. We're not messing with them either. We're actually out here trying to make money. We're actually out here trying to get it. Spoiler alert. If you like what you see, send the Cash App at $JPACHJR1980. Again, that's $JPACHJR1980. I ain't too proud to e-beg. Ladies and gentlemen, they're getting sick and tired of the bullshit because what is labeled as racist is not racist. That's the point that I'm getting at. You getting stopped by the cops because you're doing 80 in a 55-mile-an-hour speed zone is not racism, ladies and gentlemen. It's your dumbass should have been slowing down. That's the difference. And people are starting to see it. Ladies and gentlemen, that dumb person would be Jasmine Crockett. We don't claim her. Nobody claims her. She's crazy. Type in brawls, he says. I'll give you a better one. Just go ahead and go to World Star Hip Hop. That's where you will see a lot of the stuff that's going on. Some of you guys are saying that you can't hear what this guy is saying. Some of you are saying that you cannot hear what he's saying in that regards. Let me know if you can hear or if the volume is too low. In that regards, let me go ahead. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and stop sharing, and then I'll go ahead and redo this all over again. But he's basically saying that white people are sick and tired of the behaviors of black people, and some of those are the brawls. Now, I know that my cousins, when I went out of state to see them, had a saying. Well, one of my cousins did, and that was "N-word don't win, we all jump in." And me personally, I think that that's stupid. Let it be a fair fight. If it's me versus another dude and I whoop his ass, okay, we get up, shake hands. If I catch that ass whooping myself, get up, shake hands, take that L. But a lot of people don't act like that. Let me go ahead and reshare the screen so that we can go ahead and see what this gentleman has to say, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to try it one more time. One more again, as they say. We're going to try this one more again, as they say. Give me 1 second. We're going to go ahead and bring this guy right back up. Let's see. To share audio, share screen instead. This is gotta love Rumble. Chris, I know that you guys got DDoSed a couple of days ago, and I know that DDoS lasted 2.5 days, but please help us here. Let me go ahead and start over, ladies and gentlemen. This is what the gentleman had to say.
Blackness fatigue is setting in. America is exhausted from dealing with the never-ending complaints and ingratitude of the black community. Black racism against whites and Asians has reached violent proportions, and with the help and funding of the Democrat Party, militant black racism is getting worse. Well, here's a wild billboard of truth for America. White Americans are the least racist people in the USA, probably the whole world. We have been non-racist for the last 50 years, but today the Democrat Party is using racism as a political weapon. And white America is exhausted from dealing with blackness that has been coming against them day after day for years. White Americans who have never had a racist thought in their lives are tired of being constantly accused of racism.
And again, I can understand exactly why they would be tired of that, because what is being considered as racist is not racist behavior. I got arrested with perico in my pocket because I'm black. No, you didn't. You didn't get arrested with perico in your pocket because you're black. You got arrested because you had perico in your pocket. Maybe don't buy cocaine, right? I got a speeding ticket because I'm black. No, you didn't. You got a speeding ticket because you were doing 70 and a 55. Maybe don't speed. Oh, well, give me my reparations. Really? Dude. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, right? Again, like I mentioned, I'm black and I'm Puerto Rican, right? I'm black and Latino. The mix, the fun stuff, right? I have 2 bachelor's degrees. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Communications and I have a Bachelor of Arts in Political Sciences. It's government, but it's basically the same thing. After that, I went to law school and I got my Juris Doctor's degree. That, by the way, sucked. Ladies and gentlemen, I would argue that that is the reparation that I got, because those are skill sets that I would not have been able to have 80 years ago. And if we go back 160 years ago, I would have been killed for learning how to read, ladies and gentlemen. I would argue that I think we got our reparations. Now, whether you take advantage of them, that's on you. But that's not racist behavior. And yes, people are getting sick and tired of it. And I really can't say as we blame them.
They're tired of being told that every problem in the black community is the fault of white people, that the massive failures of black cities and neighborhoods and families is our fault. This week, some fruitcake politician declared that blacks violently attacking Asians is caused by white people. No matter what you say, they are slandered as blacks are to punish white Americans simply for being.
Exactly. And it's basically like you can't win. Like I mentioned, it's the unpersoning that's happening. You say something, even if it's true, he's racist, let's unperson him. Let's go ahead and cancel all of his social media accounts. Let's go ahead and get him fired from his job. And you know what? As they say, never F with a man that has nothing to lose. You put people in a position where they have absolutely nothing to lose, ladies and gentlemen. That is the issue at hand.
They are unappeasable. Now, millions of immigrants came here from England, Poland, South America, Vietnam, Russia. They came from all around the world, and they were dirt poor when they arrived. But they worked hard and became successful and rich and well-adjusted citizens. So why is it that the African community has remained in poverty for 150 years?
The short answer, the African community has not been in poverty for the past 150 years. That's simply not true. You have your Black Wall Streets. You know, I studied that in college. You had your United Negro Baseball League. We went over that in college. You know that black people held over 60% of the wealth in the United States post-slavery? Matter of fact, 2 black millionaires and a black millionaire heir were produced as a result of the freedoms that they were given post-slavery. Scott Joplin, the first black male millionaire, he's the guy that created what's known as ragtime music. Don't know what ragtime music is? Go to any cowboy western, your Tombstones, your Gunsmokes, your Fistful of Dollars, any Clint Eastwood movie, right? And you pay attention to the saloon scenes when they walk into the bar and you hear those pianos playing this weird, this weird eclectic tone of music. That's rag music. That's called ragtime. That was invented by Scott Joplin, guy that Joplin, Missouri was named after. First black millionaire, ladies and gentlemen. Second black millionaire, broke 2 records. Not only second black millionaire, but first woman black millionaire. This is the girl that invented what's known as today as Mane and Tail hair care products, your Mane and Tail shampoo. And then the black millionaire heirs, that would be Aunt Jemima, ladies and gentlemen. There was this girl that came up with this badass recipe for pancake batter post 1800s. I want to say circa 1900. And they took a picture of her and they used that picture, well, until 5 years ago when they claimed that we needed to cancel Aunt Jemima's face because of more racism. But that family made money hand over fist because of Aunt Jemima. Black people back in the days were getting money. I would argue that it wasn't until after 1965 that you had the secret societies, or not these secret societies, the open societies, the War on Hunger by Lyndon Baines Johnson, another Texan. We don't claim him. The thing is that program, in my honest opinion, was a trap. Your food stamp program, your welfare, all of that was a trap, because the way to get those benefits was you don't have a man in the household, have as many kids as you want, get more money. Oh, by the way, you got to work. By the way, we're going to take money from the man. And so what that did is it disincentivized the family. And when you disincentivize the family, 2 people working together, living together, moving not only as a good matrimony, the sex is good, you guys are happy, but as an economic matrimony, the moment that happens, the money gets sucked out of the individual's pockets and goes straight to the government. And the end result, you have a whole bunch of people that are broke as hell when that wasn't the case post-slavery. But I digress.
We built nice new apartment buildings that quickly became high-crime ghettos. Want to get an education on what's happening in Black America? Go to the internet and type in brawls. Restaurant brawls, shopping center brawls, fast food brawls, and look at what you see in those videos.
Matter of fact, you don't even have to go to brawls. All that you need to do is type World Star Hip Hop, and you'll see all of the fights.
It's not the Germans or the Italians who are turning public places into savage mass fistfights. And it's not the Australians who are walking the streets looking to beat the hell out of some pedestrian simply for having white skin. And it's not the Vietnamese who are burning and looting American cities.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have laws on the books that prevent shit like that. Pardon my language. There was a video that I watched a couple of weeks ago on my downtime. And this girl tried to run over several Mexican kids in Iowa. And the reason why was because the Mexicans are taking her jurors. And she even said it in the interrogation room. They're Mexican. They're beneath me. Really, chick? That chick is now serving well north of a century in the federal prison and well north of a century in the Iowa Department of Corrections, both sentences to run concurrent because of hate crime statutes. That is racism, not I got arrested because I was speeding. No, I got a ticket because I was speeding because I was speeding.
It's not the Russians who are fighting with and sometimes killing our police officers. But there are, of course, honorable and respectable men like Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and Dr.
Hey, what about Thurgood Marshall, the first black Supreme Court justice? Come on, man, give him some credit.
Dr. Ben Carson. These men are extremely successful and at the pinnacle of their possessions. But for some inexplicable reason, they're hated in the black community.
And you know why they're hated? Because, quote unquote, they sound white. You sound white. You act like a white boy. Why do you have to act like a white boy? You know what? Because we want to get that money. That's why we're going to get to the paper. That's why. Maybe because it shows that we have intellect when we speak proper English.
As if their success is somehow a betrayal of their race. And Carson and Thomas should be held up as role models and emulated, not hated and criticized. America is suffering from blackness fatigue, and that fatigue is slowly but surely becoming a boiling rage.
Translation, if this doesn't stop, the day will come when people start fighting each other on the account of their skin tone, on the account of their race. And the moment that happens, Lord have mercy, ladies and gentlemen, because people like myself, people like my family are going to get caught in the crossfire if we're not careful. People like my friends that are married, one's white, one's black, they're going to get caught in the crossfire when they shouldn't be.
Even the friendliest dog will bite if you kick him long enough. And that is where white America is today. There's a showdown coming. There is no more we can give.
And you shouldn't be apologizing, sir. With all due respect, why are you going to apologize for something that you didn't do? That doesn't make any sense. Now, if you hit me and I didn't do anything to deserve that, then A, are you going to apologize, or are we going to throw blows? That's different. That's way different, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm going to go ahead and play this other video, this other young man, one more time because people couldn't hear him. Salute to him. He's drinking like I am right now. It looked like he was drinking Crown and Coke, cognac and Coke, or cognac and something. He had something, ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, I got this whiskey and Sprite. But you got to hear what he's saying, because this is a black guy saying literally the exact same thing. He's calling people out on their bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I already made the commentary, so if you want the commentary, you can go back to the part where this guy wasn't playing. We had technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. But here we are right now, ladies and gentlemen, with what he has to say. I'm going to let this bad boy play right through.
So white folks finally had enough. Y'all are finally speaking out against the bullshit from the community, right? Now I'm going to tell y'all something real quick. These two cases, Carmelo Anthony and Rodney Hinton Jr., these two particular cases, I'm going to be real with y'all. Both of them are guilty as hell. Carmelo Anthony is a murderer and Rodney Hinton Jr. is a murderer, right? But the fact that so many folks in my community have this inner hatred towards white folks, they're going to side with them every single time, right?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what racism is. I am going to side with the guy that beat your ass because he's black, I'm black, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't work that way. That is racism and prejudice to the nth degree.
Which leads to the argument of black fatigue. Right now, white folks are finally stepping up. Like when it comes to this, okay, we stay quiet, and we let black people have their way with shit like this. White people are finally speaking up. Matt Walsh, the Quartering, everybody, all the white folks that got a voice, they are speaking up right now. You know what I mean? And
shout out to the Quartering, by the way.
Black fatigue is a real thing. With these two cases, Carmelo Anthony and Rodney Hinton, yes, I understand why white folks are mad. These are two clear cases of hatred, right? Yet black folks, we want to find a way to justify the bullshit. No. Carmelo Anthony,
Hinton Jr., the question is, this is, my legal education kicking in, unfortunately. Did he pick up the gun and brandish the gun at the cops? If he did, bye-bye, the shooting was, the unaliving was justified. If he just picked up the gun and ran, then the unaliving was unjustified. Does not excuse the father for what he did. So now 3 lives are gone, potentially 4 lives. Ojalá que estén feliz.
Son was in the wrong when he was killed by the police. Your son stole a vehicle and had a loaded weapon in the car. The police even practiced patience when he dropped the weapon and proceeded to pick up the weapon and run.
Again, he proceeded to pick up the weapon and run. Did he point the weapon? If he didn't, we have a problem. If you did, hey, them's the consequences when you act stupid. It's not because you're black, Mr. Hinton.
Bro, you're guilty. You know what I mean? So white people are finally stepping up and saying, you know what, I'm tired of this shit. I don't care how many of my black friends call me racist. I don't care how people feel. I'm going to stand on business and speak the truth, right? So therefore, with me, black man, and I'm not racist, I'm very unbiased with my videos, but these two particular cases, the Carmelo Anthony and the Rodney Hinton case, both of them motherfuckers are guilty. You know what I mean? So the fact that we are finding a way to justify this is now becoming a real thing. And I don't give a hell. I don't give a shit what y'all say.
Salute to that. I will salute to that man, because what he was saying is the truth. Basically, what is happening is people are being held to an account based on the content of who they are, not the color of their skin. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go to a break and go to the main topic of Pablo Pacheco, we're going to go ahead and go over commentary with my man Anton Daniels. Follow him, by the way. He's a great entrepreneur, Michigander, lives out there in Detroit. Did his thing down here and did his thing in Mexico, in Querétaro, and he discovered why I love that city so much. But let's go ahead and hear what he has to say, Mr. Anton Daniels, ladies and gentlemen.
Talk about Shiloh Hendricks, the woman who called a 5-year-old a racial slur. My first impression after watching the video, like trash it. The kid was 5. I worked with 5-year-olds for the last 15
That kid did not look 5 in the video. I'm just going to be honest with you. That kid looked like he was 9 or 10.
years. Absolutely everything they do is out of pocket. They're like little unhinged drunk people. Nothing they do makes sense. Not taking things that don't belong.
5-year-olds should know the difference between right and wrong.
Any kindergarten teacher. But I realize why so many people are wanting to defend this, because Black fatigue is real. I think society as a whole is there. We are just so unbelievably fed up with the ghetto ratchet behavior, entitlement, the victimhood, that they want to praise this woman. But what she did...
It's not about praising that woman. That's the thing that this girl has wrong. The thing is they're sending money because it's a way of making a statement. I'll give you an example. Anybody remember when we found out that GameStop was being shorted by hedge funds back in 2020? And we had stimulus money, so some of us paid off our debts. We had money to blow, so we're like, you know what? Why not use our money as a tool? Matter of fact, let's use our money as a weapon. As a weapon, ladies and gentlemen. We did literally that, used our money as a weapon, and a couple of hedge funds went bankrupt because when it came time to pay, GameStop, instead of their stock going down to damn near zero, which was what these people were expecting to happen, it went up to like $200 a share. Now, when some of us bought in, it was like $2 a share. So some of us made bank. It was hilarious to watch. It was hilarious to watch. I'll never forget, one of the hedge fund guys was like, you guys are nothing more than retards. Artards, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, YouTube. Artards. And one of the guys said, and I quote, this was on Wall Street Bets back in the day. His quote was, "We can remain artards longer than you can remain solvent." 2 days later, that hedge fund was belly up. It was hilarious to watch. Well, these people are doing the same thing. They're using their money, not as a weapon per se, but they're using their money to make a statement, which basically validates Citizens United. Money is free speech. Because they're literally, for lack of a better word, putting their money where their mouth is.
Is not praiseworthy. But also on the same hand, please remember that every day that white people get on this app, we get called racial slurs every day. So if you don't want to be called a racial slur, you also have to stop calling people racial slurs.
The golden rule: treat others as you want to be treated. If you don't like being called the N-word, stop calling them cracker, which is a derogatory reference to the slave masters that would crack the whip. Stop calling them that, okay? You don't like being called the N-word, or you don't like being called crispy? How about stop calling them rednecks? Another derogatory reference regarding the Southern farmers that would go out there, and because they were out there in that hot ass sun 12 hours a day, they had a red tan around their necks. You don't like being called the N-word? Stop doing it to them.
You can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. But for the love of God, please leave the children out of it. Adults are stupid. They're going to do stupid things. But you're a different level of stupid when you bring kids into it. Thanks for coming to my table.
So basically what this woman is saying is that two things could be true at the same time. I said this the other day when this whole situation first broke out, and we had planned on Monday night. Said that white people are sucking their business behind black fatigue. Is that nobody wants you to continue to play victim for the rest of your life. They tired of being held accountable for things that their ancestors.
We're Phoenix Energy.
Yes, we know the ancestors did. And I understand that. They weren't born at around that time. They didn't ask for all of this bullshit. And likewise, we didn't deal with slavery. Again, I will mention what I mentioned at the beginning of this show. By the way, follow me on X. I post more on X than I do because I have a day job, and I'm trying to get the money, and I'm trying to study so that I can become a licensed attorney myself, this bar exam, ladies and gentlemen. But I wasn't born into racism. I was born 45 years ago in a couple of weeks. I didn't deal with any of that bullshit. When I went to school, there were white people, there were black people, there were Filipino people, there were Mexican people, there were Puerto Ricans. Then there were Puerto Ricans that were 100%. Again, my best friend, my childhood best friend is a white guy. Love that guy till this day. I will, if I were completely able-bodied, I would defend him to the death because he and his family were nothing but good to me in that regard. But we had, as funny as this sounds, we became friends after a fight, right? But ladies and gentlemen, people have to be held to account by what they do. Again, judgment by the content of their character.
How do you blaming all of your failures and the things that you weren't able to accomplish on white people? They're tired of you sitting there saying that you're a victim every single day, regardless of what your circumstances, regardless of what you've been given, regardless of all of the affirmative action, regardless of the fact that you're saying that you're the most educated, but really you're the most enrolled.
Usually, if you have to say that you're the most educated, you're not. You don't need to validate yourself. You let your skill sets speak for themselves.
They tired of you blaming your debt on the system. They tired of you saying that white men are the problem. They tired of you asking for programs, and they're tired of being held accountable for the decisions that you're making every single day.
She'll be watching her back for the rest of her life. That's camaraderie, and listen to this. This is why people it's normal to do stupid stuff. People say stupid stuff. That's life. It's not normal to threaten to unalive people because you don't like what they're doing. But here we are. People are getting sick and tired of opening up TikTok and seeing brawls on cruise ships, brawls in the airport.
Facts. I thought about asking my girlfriend if we could put money together so that we could go on a cruise to Jamaica by the end of 2026. After seeing some of the videos of what went down, that ain't happening.
Literally the most ghetto behavior. We're tired. We're tired of it. But then whining and complaining and acting like it's not your fault that you act that way. Yeah.
And so that comment proved her right. And for whatever reason, y'all think that the white people don't have eyes, that people that are not black don't have eyes, and they can't see how ghetto a lot of this is. And then I have to pay for it because I got to go outside and then account for what you did. People.
No, you don't. Look, Anton, I'm sorry. With total respect, I have to disagree with you on that. You don't have to account for anything that anybody else did. We are responsible for our own actions. Our own actions. Give me a second. I need a drink after that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to run around and try to justify or try to atone for something that anybody else did. Blood libel disappeared the moment that the United States was founded. So I'm not responsible for your actions. I'm responsible for Juan's actions. I'm responsible for Pablo Pacheco's actions. And did I fuck up quite a bit in my life? Oh yeah, I did, ladies and gentlemen. I did. But again, I learn from those lumps, and there might be fallings out, I'm sorry. But I learned you don't make those same, after I learn what I learned, I don't make the same mistake twice, period, the end. I'm not responsible for anything that anybody else did. I'm responsible for me. Punto y fin.
People are tired. In general, black people, I'll just say this. First, let's say whatever. I'm not sure that I actually spoke on this outside of the panel. So let me address this. Again, more than one thing can be true at the same time. Was it right that they called the child the N-word? Absolutely not. That is already a given. I'm not sure that there's anybody that actually can justify why it would make sense to call a 5-year-old that name. 100%. At the same time, if you're trying to understand why people are supporting this person, it's because they have black fatigue and they're tired of, I'll give you an example. And please, miss with all the bullshit, always getting mad at me for explaining to you why other people may be seeing things a little bit differently because I decided to be objective enough to look at it from somebody else's perspective instead of just looking at it from a black hand side. Nobody want to hear that shit no more. And more importantly, nobody cares about what you think because realistically, it's been proven that nobody takes accountability, which means that you'll never have any power to do anything or say anything to anybody.
Facts. You want to be able to open your mouth and spout your opinion. You need to be responsible for the content of who you are as a person. Again, last I checked, a certain black man in 1961 had a dream that that's exactly how people would be judged. If I'm not mistaken, that would be based on the content of their character and not by the color of their skin.
You don't control nothing. You're not going to say anything. And so that's how it plays out. But the other side of it is that it's a little bit difficult to validate or justify everybody that is black. The same thing.
Not everybody that's black calls everybody that's black the same thing. My parents hated it. I hate it. My grandmother on my mom's side hated it. And I can understand why. It makes you look less than. That doesn't make sense, but I digress.
And then we're going to change the definition of a word because we're going to say that we're using it as a term and endearment, but then we're going to not validate other people because we know what your intentions are behind it.
But do you know their intentions behind it? Okay, let's say that I'm a white guy completely, right? Let's say that I have the good hair, the light skin. Yeah, I'm partially albino, ladies and gentlemen. I'm supposed to have the coconut skin tone actually, but I have the white skin and the good hair, right? And I hear, let's say that I start getting into rap music, and let's say that I listen to Jadakiss. I like Jadakiss, ladies and gentlemen. And it's N-word this and N-word that and N-word this, and here I am rapping and saying N-word this and N-word that, N-word this. Next thing you know, I'm getting sucker punched. Hey, what the hell was that? What was that for? You shouldn't say the N-word. Dude, it was on the song. What the hell do you want me to do? Like, it was part of the song. Come on, man. Yeah, no, you see how absurd that is.
Yes, we get it that they're having bad intentions as a result of it. But again, it starts to get a little bit old and a little bit tiring trying to hold other people accountable when we don't hold up.
Again, you're not supposed to hold other people accountable. You are accountable for you, and that's it. Well, you know what? Scratch that. When you have little ones, you're accountable for the actions of your little ones because your job is to mold them. But you're not accountable for anybody else, buddy. You do you, and that's it. F everybody else.
Put ourselves accountable. I'll give you another example. Every single time that there is a conflict, we always look to see whether it's a white person or a black person. I just recently looked at the press conference and I can't. The cops did everything that they're supposed to do in order to handle that situation right. We know that the cops did it wrong and they handled it wrong when it came to killing that boy Tyree Nichols. That's what I was saying. Anybody's watching footage, know that he got his ass kicked. Didn't have a gun, didn't have any of these things.
Oh, he got his ass beat all right. That was a beat down for the ages. and it was unjustifiable, in my opinion.
Obviously, 2 cops took charge. It looks like 3 other cops got off. I don't know what
they didn't get off. They got off on the Tennessee charges, on the state charges. They are still serving federal time for deprivation of rights under color of law, which is a federal offense.
I didn't follow the whole case, but I seen they got off. I don't think that they should have been completely not holding. Of course not. They started making a race, and I was wondering to myself, okay, how is this a race? Because it's all black cops. Oh, nope, got it fired, even all of this, they released about.
The reason why they make that part about race, and this is how stupid these people are, this is on the far left of the Democrats, and this is why I got pushed from being center left to the right, same political philosophies, right, is because they believe that the systems that are in place are what are known as inherently racist, the systems themselves. And so because you work for a certain system, whether it's the criminal justice system, whether it's the immigration and naturalization system, whether it is the U.S. Department of Agriculture, those were systems constructed by white men, so therefore you are white adjacent or white inherent even though you're a black guy. Make that make sense. That's how stupid these people are.
Body cam footage immediately. Everybody, it's a race issue. The Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf, it wasn't a student versus a student issue. Now it's a black versus white issue. Black Lives Matter, even though it was an organization, Candace Owens, but now all of a sudden everybody want to wake up and say, you know what, I kind of rock with Candace Owens because she's...
Yeah, after giving almost $80 million to Patrisse Cullors. How did that work out, Pimpton?
Finally critical of Trump, which she's been objective the whole time. She just didn't agree with y'all politics. But every single thing, we first have to find out, is it a white person? Is it anybody that's not black? Because guess what's going to happen? We are not going to hold ourselves accountable. Anyway, I just think people justify the big black statue, the big black.
You're talking about the statue of that fat woman in New York? Come on, Anton, not her. No, man, that statue was horrible. It looked like watching a chocolate version of Lizzo, ladies and gentlemen. I looked at that bad boy and I was like, run, run. Ladies and gentlemen, I know. She might step on you or she might eat you. No, God forbid she sits on you. Run. Man, that was the most embarrassing thing that New York City had to commission, in my opinion.
Statue in New York City, and we need representation of the black woman in there. And people are tired. People are absolutely tired. It's old. It is old as snow. Nobody cares anymore. And again, I don't know what y'all thinking. I don't know if y'all think that people don't have similar with this one said, no, and it's like, does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense at all. Number one, why are you going to communicate a threat like that? Watch your back for the rest of you. Get out of here. Stop. Not only that, but why are you going to act like a kid? You're 20, 30, 40, 50, going on 5, talking that bullshit. Make that make sense.
And for some reason, somehow, y'all said that black people can't be racist. Where? Where can't you be racist? Y'all ever met Letitia James? Openly racist? Y'all ain't never seen D.L. Hughley? Openly racist? You ain't never met Michelle Obama?
Openly racist and also talking about leaving her man. Or leaving his man, I don't know, either or. We got some questions about Michelle, ladies and gentlemen. Promoting divorce like it's cool. You know what, fuck out of here, that's bullshit.
You ain't met any of these people that just had power?
I'm not happy. Bitch, it's not about you. The moment that you get married, it's no longer about you at that particular point, at the end of the day. It's about what you do to complement your other half. You solo, that's gone. But nobody seems to realize that. And they're basically I'm not happy. I'm not this. What type of selfish, ignorant bullshit is that? And then you wonder why the divorce rate's over 50%. Yeah, out of here. I'm out of here with that bullshit.
That rally against and then rally for people that are married to white people, and then y'all try to justify it to say that they got a percentage of black in them, and then get the hell out of here. Y'all ain't never met some of these people that are some of the most powerful, or they have the biggest voices in the world. Y'all ain't never met Charlamagne the God. Y'all ain't never seen that? Y'all ain't never seen none of these people operating and just moving around and doing what they want to do when they want to do it. You know, for black people, it is tiring. And I want to review another video that I've seen come across my timeline after.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, he's right. It is tiring. But the thing is it's not what we were supposed to have in this country. We weren't supposed to, it's not supposed to be Mr. Sherrod or Mr. or Mrs. Jaquisha. We're going to go ahead and give you the benefit of the doubt because you're black. It doesn't work that way. Jamal, we are going to go ahead and let you in here because we know that you beat up that kid, but you know, we understand we understand you were oppressed or your family was oppressed, so we're going to give you a pass. No, doesn't work that way. That happened already. That's gone. That's over 150 years ago. Ja, basta, as they say, right? Stop. There's no other way around that. Judge them or look at them by what they do. You want to whoop somebody's ass? Okay, fine, do that. See if anybody wants to hang out with you. And at the same time, don't act surprised when you're catching charges, right? No, there's no other way around that. Don't act surprised when that happens. You wanna act big and bad on a cruise ship? Don't be surprised when you end up on a federal do not sell list. You wanna act and show your ass on an airplane? Don't be surprised when you're on a federal do not fly list, ladies and gentlemen. But people seem to not get that. The problem, ladies and gentlemen, is this: there are more of them than there are per capita when it comes to population. And when I say per capita, I'm not necessarily just saying blacks. I'm going to add everybody else in the fray that are not whites, because when we get back from our break, I'm going to show you how the Republican Party literally snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, ladies and gentlemen. And I would argue that what they did in this particular instance might cost them the midterms come next year. On Hablo Pacheco, please stay with us.
And tonight, in a brand new interview, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is telling CNN's Christiane Amanpour that Donald Trump will likely be the Republican nominee.
I think they are intimidated. They oftentimes, say and do things which they know better than to say or do. And it will require us defeating those most extreme measures and the people who promote them. There wasn't this little tail of extremism wagging the dog of the Republican Party. Maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen.
And how do you do that? Because you said you have to defeat them by defeating their leader. Their leader is Donald Trump. Even you have said that you expect him to be the Republican nominee. How does this change at all?
And sadly, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, who has no credibility left by any measure.
Sunday night, I asked her to not stay up super late because of her coming to work with me in the morning first to do her summer school. She said, okay. I told her good night and I love you. I went to bed, not realizing that that was going to be the last time I saw her.
We're best friends.
Yeah. We're going shaking again.
I woke up to notice she wasn't in her bed. I'm in my heart trying not to lose my mind because I don't know where she is. I finally remembered her phone had a location on, and her phone was pinging just 2 minutes down the road, right behind the skate park. I start driving to the direction the phone was being pinged at, and I see a couple cop cars with lights on. I see yellow tape, and immediately my heart drops and sinks to the bottom of my stomach. My daughter's hands and ankles were both bound. She was strangled to death, left with no pants. And I know in my heart, she fought incredibly hard. She was not going down without a fight.
We begin with two men we're learning are charged with capital murder tonight, accused of killing a 12-year-old girl.
Police say these men strangled her before dumping her into that creek. Both men were in the country illegally.
Apprehended, then released by Border Patrol less than 3 weeks before Jocelyn's death. The men accused of killing Jocelyn Nungare are affiliated with the gang known for brutal violence.
Kamala Harris was in charge of immigration in our borders. If we had better border policies and not open borders and not these catch and release policies, I truly believe this all could have been prevented. Under her being vice president of this country, my daughter's life was ripped away from her. She had her entire life ahead of her.
Happy birthday, dear Jocelyn.
My daughter is 6 feet in the ground based off of policies that she allowed to keep. Kamala Harris did have one job, and she not only failed, not me, she failed my daughter. She failed Jocelyn. She was only 12. President Trump reached out, gave me his sincerest condolences as not a former president, but just as a father, someone who cares. I believe Donald Trump needs to be back in office. I can at least know that my next child will be safe in this country.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, on Pablo Pacheco for the main event. Before I start with the event of the night or of the evening, I would like to remind you guys that if you like what you see, please follow me on X at Pablo_Pacheco. Again, that's Pablo_Pacheco. I have a day job, so I don't stream that much here, ladies and gentlemen, but I do a lot of posting and I do a lot of commenting on X. So follow me there at Pablo_Pacheco. If you do want me to do this full time, feel free to send me a cash app at $JPACHJR1980. Again, that is JPACHJR1980. Again, $JPACH1980. And also support my friends at Fallback Productions by purchasing some merchandise today. I have the We the People Told You So shirts. I have the Trump shirt and hat combo. I can't wait to get the FAFO shirt and the Cancer Sucks shirt. The Cancer Sucks shirt because a dear friend of mine is undergoing cancer right now. And this was a way of raising money for them. But you can purchase merchandise like that at the Fallback Production store. That is fallbackusa2.myshopify.com. fallbackusa2.myshopify.com. Again, fallbackusa2.myshopify.com. Get your merchandise today, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last part of Pablo Pacheco. Like I mentioned, you have a lot of people that are fatigued, as it were. We went over the videos and I explained to you that it's not necessarily them being fatigued. They just want to judge people based on what their actions are and not what they are as blacks without being called racist. That's judging somebody on the content of their character and not the color of their skin. a certain guy had a dream that that would actually happen. May he rest in peace. The thing is, ladies and gentlemen, that when it comes to the fatigue per se, that could cause other problems that we aren't ready for. And those problems could be exacerbated for those of us that are mixed or that are in interracial relationships, things like that. That's also not good as well, ladies and gentlemen. Not saying that we wouldn't endure them, we would, because as they say, love is stronger than all the bullshit that comes at you. However, at the exact same time, ladies and gentlemen, at the exact same time, it's one hell of a dogfight that people aren't ready for, nor should they have to be ready for, because post-civil rights era, post-slavery era, we should have been past this already, if that makes any sense. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the people, the population sizes of blacks, Hispanics, Asians, or what have you, and you look at what's going on in this particular country, you would almost certainly think that, hey, we're giving China the business. That means that we're going to do better. Ukraine, finally we turned off the water spigot and twisted Zelensky's arm. Now that that's done, that means we're starting to save money. There's a chance that all of us U.S. citizens and permanent residents, lawful permanent residents, will receive $5,000 as a part of this Doge thing because of all of the money that they found that was misspent. And it has to be appropriated somewhere. And of course, finally people are getting ready to talk about lowering the national debt. So when you look at everybody per capita, including white folks, Trump should win a third term if the Constitution allowed it, and the Republicans should have been able to take over Congress in supermajority fashion, a repeat of what the Dems did in 2009, per se. Ladies and gentlemen, the Republican Party is really, really good at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. But, Pacheco, how are they doing that? Let me go ahead and show you. Ladies and gentlemen, this article that's going to be coming up in a moment is an article regarding refugee status. Now, my honest opinion is we're full. We're full, ladies and gentlemen. That was my thing. And then, of course, I saw some of the people. There's a difference between, I'll just put it like this. There's a difference between you're actually running from valid oppression and people that are running because, you know what, we got issues, we're broke. Hey, well, dude, I'm just as broke as you are. Sorry, it is what it is. That being said, I understand the concerns that people have because they're being oppressed by their government. I can't talk straight. It's the liquor, blame it on the alcohol. Ladies and gentlemen, the thing is when you are running from your government because they want to lock you up for who you voted for, yes, that's happening in Venezuela, that's happening in Nicaragua. Shit, that happened here on a day in January 2021. Matter of fact, Trump, had he not pardoned them and had Kamala Harris won, all of us would have been in trouble, myself included, potentially. And so those I can understand. But the mantra was, we're full. And I agree, we're full. That includes the people from South Africa, the Afrikaans. Did you hear me? We're full. We're full. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't deal with them anymore. Not necessarily in the sense that we don't like them, but we're full.
A few moments later.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Trump administration decided that they're going to go ahead and fly 49 white South Africans to the United States under refugee status, and that flight begins next week. Ladies and gentlemen, this group, which included families and small children, was due to arrive at Dulles. This is the airport in Washington, D.C. Tomorrow. This is according to Colin Seaby, a spokesperson for South Africa's transport ministry. They are the first Afrikaners, the Afrikaans group that I was talking to you about. A white minority group in South Africa to be relocated after President Trump issued an executive order on February 7th accusing South Africa's black-led government of racial discrimination against them and announcing a program to offer them relocation to the United States. The South African government said that it is completely false that Afrikaners are being persecuted. Ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and show you real quick why what the South African government said is a lie. Ladies and gentlemen, this was a conference almost a decade ago. And let's just go ahead and hear what this guy, who is now their president, had to say.
You, when I'm sick, when I'm good, so fast, kitchen, so fast, kitchen.
Kill the farmer, basically. Shoot to kill. And look at what this dumbass put on YouTube. Kiss the ball. No, he didn't say kiss the ball. Get out of here, man. Get out of here with that bullshit. I know. You guys really, really think that you're so slick that we'll say, oh, okay, he actually said kiss the ball.
You big dummy.
But it gets worse, ladies and gentlemen. The boer, the farmer. No, that's not what he meant, Pacheco. That's not what he meant at all. Bullshit, that's not what he meant. Come on. Come on. Really? Let's go ahead and show you this, ladies and gentlemen. Free State farmer, 71 years old, killed and his wife critically injured in a brutal attack. She was SA'd, ladies and gentlemen. She was SA'd. These dummies actually, these guys were really, really great at what they did. They knew that there were no landlines. Everything was was by cell phone because cell phones are the in thing right now. So they walked up on this guy's farm with cell phone jammers. They look like they look like the remote that I have, ladies and gentlemen, for the air conditioner. They look like that, ladies and gentlemen. And they jammed the cell phone signal, so nobody could call 000, which is their 911, right? And of course, they did what they did, including unaliving this farmer. But he only said kiss the boy. He said kiss the farmer. Get out of here. Really? Kiss the boy? That's what you said? Farmer tortured and killed in horrific South Africa raid. Really? But kiss the bull, right? Kiss the bull. Get out of here. But ladies and gentlemen, the problem that we have is that you have a whole bunch of people that don't see what we see. They don't pay that close attention to the news per se, ladies and gentlemen. And the end result is they're going to cry racism, and the racism, which is a bullshit cry, the problem is what's that saying by Mark Twain? The lie gets around the world. The lie, when you tell a lie, it gets halfway around the world before the truth gets up and gets its pants on. Something to that effect. Problem, ladies and gentlemen, is this. People are going to claim that you don't want a certain group of people seeking asylum, but white people are more than welcome, which is a huge, huge problem. The Trump administration accused the South African government of pursuing racist, anti-white policies through affirmative action laws and a land expropriation law it says targets Afrikaners' property. South Africa says those claims are based on misinformation and there is no racism against Afrikaners and no land has been expropriated. Yeah, we went over the articles. That land has been expropriated by force. The first Afrikaner refugees are traveling on a flight operated by the Tulsa, Oklahoma-based charter company, Omni Air International, the CB said. They will fly to Dakar, Senegal, where the plane will refuel before heading to Dulles, he said. departed from Ortombo International Airport in Johannesburg, where they were accompanied by police officers and airport officials when they checked in. They would have to be vetted by police to ensure there were no criminal cases or outstanding warrants against them before being allowed to leave. Wait a minute. Time out. Afrenate. You are claiming that you need to leave South Africa because of the racism perpetrated by the South African government. Meanwhile, you're relying on the South African government to vet them to make sure that there are no outstanding warrants. You know what? As messed up as this sounds, if I am the Prime Minister of South Africa, you know what I would do? I would figure out who all of the people are that are Afrikaners, and I would put South African federal warrants against them. Bullshit warrants, but since there are active arrest warrants, these people aren't going to be able to leave the country. There, game done. Make that make sense. And as a result, again, people that don't look too deep into this will say, well, it's racist. It's extremely racist. Really? Are you sure that it's racist? I don't think it is. But the problem is there's more of them than there are of me, and that will affect us politically in the end. Because guess what's going to happen? There's going to be certain themes that I'm going to talk about with you in a moment, and those themes are going to become front and center the midterms of 2026. Look at this. Trump is bringing white South Africans to the U.S. as refugees. Why? And look, these are the Afrikaners. Look, thank you, Trump. Elon, send ANC to Mars. ANC, the ANC is the party that's in power right now in South Africa. They're the version of what is known as Revcom America. Revcom America sounds so cute. It sounds so masculine. Revcom America. Join Revcom. Ladies and gentlemen, Revcom is short for the American Revolutionary Communist Party. Yes, ANC, they're commies. They're commies. No to land and property expropriation without compensation. We'll see about that. It looks like the report that I'm looking at, Compliments of the Independent, says that this initiative stands in stark contrast to the administration's broader anti-migrant stance. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. You're starting to see the theme already developed, ladies and gentlemen, which has seen the suspension of various refugee programs and a halt to arrivals from regions including Iraq, Afghanistan. That I have a problem with. You can vet them. If they worked with our military, their asses need to be here because they're not gonna see the light of day if they're found out in Iraq and Afghanistan. And much of sub-Saharan Africa. That's also true. The prioritization of these South African cases has drawn criticism for refugee advocacy groups, raising questions about the criteria being used to determine eligibility and the apparent disparity in treatment compared to other displaced populations. Ladies and gentlemen, we're starting to see the theme formed in live time. Wait a minute. You're not allowing people to come over to the United States that are brown and black skinned, but you're allowing white people. Racist. That's the theme, ladies and gentlemen. Afrikaners are the descendants of mainly Dutch and French colonial settlers. Yeah, they came from the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken, roughly 300 years ago, who first came to South Africa in the 17th century, so the 1600s, so 400 years ago. There are about 2.7 million Afrikaners among South Africa's population of 62 million, which is more than 80% black. Many in South Africa are puzzled by claims that Afrikaners are persecuted and meet the requirements to be refugees. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why they would be puzzled is because to meet refugee status, it's literally the exact same requirements as asylum status. To become a refugee, you have to show that you are being persecuted by your government on the account of your race, religion, your political affiliation, membership to a particular social group. Well, Trump already gave the executive order that said whites are being persecuted on the account of their race. therefore they come. Ladies and gentlemen, the South African-born advisor Elon Musk has accused the South African government of having racist, anti-white laws and policies, but the claims of persecution center on a relatively small number of violent farm attacks and robberies on white people in rural communities. Again, we went over those articles. It's happening, and the people aren't being looked at. The government's not going after the people that perpetrated these attacks. That's the problem. But again, make it make sense that you have a warrant for your arrest. You can't leave. So again, if I'm the Prime Minister of South Africa, fuck y'all. I'm going to go ahead and put arrest warrants on everybody. Congratulations, nobody can leave. How you like them apples? That's the part that our government seems to not do well, is look a couple of steps ahead and what will happen when you put certain requirements in place, ladies and gentlemen. But again, let me go ahead and show you a little bit more of the theme that's being set up. The theme is racism. And again, the midterms are less than 15 months away. Come November, let the fun begin, ladies and gentlemen, because all of this is going to be used against every Republican that's running for office.
I'm joined by
right now, these are people that are rejecting the relocation plan, and this is what they have to say.
Ghana and you are South African.
Goeiemiddag. Ja, ek is 'n Suid-Afrikaner by bloed en ek sal altyd ene wees. Ek sal nie in 'n ander land kan bly nie.
You won't go and live in any other country, but what do you then make?
He said he's South African, and he's not leaving. He's staying.
Of this executive order, which has so much implications for South Africa.
Well, all I can say is that Donald Trump must leave his things in America, and we can stay in South Africa. So yeah, dis ons land en ons sal hierso bly.
What are you farming?
I'm farming broiler chickens now, and we're starting with pigs also. Yeah.
So in other words, you are not going to take up this offer by the Americans for you to go and be a refugee in the United States?
No, I'm not a refugee. Me, I come from South Africa. I'm an indigenous from here. Yeah, I'll maybe go take a holiday there, but I won't go to stay there. Yeah.
I'm staying here and I'm fighting. Which, ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't necessarily say this. I blame him because let's just be honest. I don't have anywhere to go if shit hits the fan in the United States. I don't have anywhere to run. Nobody does. That's the problem. That's a huge problem, ladies and gentlemen. And so he's taking the stance that, nah, F that. I'm going to stay in South Africa and I'm going to fight, which is what we would have to do. And again, for me personally, it's not the plight of the refugees that gets me roiled up, because I'm not roiled up per se in that sense. For me personally, it's we're full. I'm sorry, we're full. We need to sort out the cases that we have right now. We need to sort out the cases that are meritorious and the cases that are bullshit. Once all of that's done, and it's going to take a minute, then we might consider accepting other people, and that includes everybody, including the Afrikaans, the people from South Africa. But there's more.
Yes, he says that the government of South Africa is doing very bad things to you and your community. Is that the sentiment you have?
Well, no, our government is very good to us. They actually just fixed our road there on the gravel road, and they're building RTP houses for the people, and that actually boosts our business, because now there's going to be more people buying chickens from us and eggs, and also pig meat and so on. So I think that the government is actually doing good for us now.
So now we have a conflict. Is the government actually treating them bad on the account of their race? Is the government actually persecuting them on the account of their race? Or are they actually doing good things? Again, you saw what the leader of the ANC, now the prime minister, had to say. You saw the articles that we went over. Again, because there's a conflict in case, per se, why are we bringing them over as refugees, right? This is where, again, the Republicans literally snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. But here we go. There's a little bit more, ladies and gentlemen, once this ad disappears. in that regards, because again, the theme of racism per se is still live. This is a guy that I love to hate. This is Roland Martin. I cannot stand this guy, but he went to Texas A&M. My kid is at Texas A&M, so I have to tolerate him. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and hear what they have to say regarding this situation.
I'll tell you what this white supremacist is doing, y'all. This white supremacist has now signed executive order, signed sanctions against South Africa for their recent land seizure bill. He's ordering all aid to South Africa be halted, and he's ordering federal agencies to prioritize humanitarian relief and admission to the United States for Afrikaner refugees. So what Donald Trump is saying is, and remember, Elon Musk tweeted this a couple days ago, we need to bring these white South Africans to the United States.
And ladies and gentlemen, here's the setup. Here's the setup for what this guy is going to say throughout this entire exchange.
Just so everybody knows, Zachary, do you know 3 of the biggest billionaires supporting Donald Trump? Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, David Sachs, all 3 white children of apartheid.
That same week that our president and our government decided to deny continuing to fund humanitarian aid and relief to the people of Gaza, a land that he got on a national stage and said that he wanted to take over to further colonize. He is now also saying that he wants to give financial recompensation to Afrikaners in South Africa.
Tired of typing tons of notes during class?
Ladies and gentlemen, the theme was already started. It's racism. He's using the refugee status as racism. He's a white supremacist.
Report the government of South Africa's commission of rights violations in its country, or it's undermining United States foreign policy, which poses national security threats to our nation, our allies, our African partners, and our interests. Exactly how is South Africa actually doing that? And so, again, he lays out in here policy. It is the policy of the United States that as long as South Africa continues these unjust and immoral practices that harm our nation, I'm sorry. How does South Africa's land law harm us? The United States shall not provide aid or assistance to South Africa, and the United States shall promote the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees escaping government-sponsored race-based discrimination, including racially discriminatory property confiscation. Y'all, remember when he was trashing the Haitian immigrants? What he's saying is,
here we go again, further setting up the theme, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, all you white people from South Africa, welcome home to the United States, Matt.
How are 334 million people being held hostage by 2 dudes? That's what's happening right now. Like, seriously, how does South Africa's land law affect us at all? Beyond that, if the 3 billionaires supporting you are all South African, why are we surprised by it? Like, I don't understand this. I do not.
It doesn't. The short answer is it doesn't affect us, sir. I know you're not listening. This happened because this is from a while ago. But, sir, with all due respect, the issue is, are they being persecuted by their country? And Trump is saying that they are. The problem with that is guys like this gentleman are a dime a dozen right now. And guys like this gentleman vote. That is the problem. And so for me personally, it's what's good for one is good for all, right? I saw in South Texas, in northeastern Mexico, and in central Mexico, what the situation with the migrants, specifically the Venezuelans and the people from the Democratic Republic of Congo, right? The problem The problem is like I mentioned, we're full. And then, of course, they treated the people in Mexico just as bad. One person, Guatemalan chick, was like, I didn't come over here to eat flour tortillas with beans and eggs. And I'm like, hey, I like flour tortillas with beans and eggs. Shoot. You find me a Mexican woman that can cook that. Shoot. I'll go broke. I love Mexican food, man. But they had that type of indignant behavior about them. That was the issue. Didn't want to accept anybody else's help. They were just hell bent on getting to the United States. My response is we're full. For the people in South Africa as well, I say the same thing. I'm sorry. I know the plight. We went over it. We're full. But ladies and gentlemen, the theme gets worse. Here we go. Trump shut out refugees, but is making white South Africans an exception. Again, the theme is white supremacy. The theme is racism. And again, these people vote. These people vote, ladies and gentlemen. And again, you and I, we all know the difference. We all know what's going on. We can say, you know what? They are actually facing oppression. We went over it. The oppression is at the hands of their government. Again, why we have to do vetted checks for arrest warrants by their government. Meanwhile, their government's oppressing them. That I don't understand. Again, like I said, if I'm their government, I already have the out for all of them not getting refugee status. But I digress. Plans are underway to fly 60 Afrikaners to Dulles. We went over that already. The arriving families that are part of a group that President Trump has said face racial discrimination will then be resettled outside Virginia in at least 7 states, according to those familiar with the plans, who spoke on the condition of anonymity. Yeah, they had no business. They had no business talking. They had no business talking. But the problem is we're dealing with white versus everybody else. Again, that's the theme. That's the theme. Again, we know what's going on, but the problem is when you hear nobody else can get refugee status, but white people can, there's a problem. Nobody else can come to claim asylum, but white people can. That's a problem, notwithstanding the fact that people come and they claim asylum and they don't have a case. And, as a result, they don't pass the credible fear interview. But that again is not important to these people that make this theme. And again, these people vote. These people vote. Look, Trump makes carve out and refugee ban for white South Africans. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the theme. It's going to be a white versus black theme, or it's going to be a white versus them theme. That's what they're going to use. And again, the problem is these people vote. That's the issue. And so because those people vote, we have problems when it comes to the midterms. And the problem is because these people vote, ladies and gentlemen, because those people vote, we run the risk of them seeing that theme before we even get a chance to explain to everybody, hey, they actually are dealing with true oppression. Those people are actually running for their lives. Compliments of the ANC in South Africa. Yes, they actually, if that's not a credible fear, seeing somebody SA'd and seeing other family members unalive, I don't know what is. But the problem is since we won't have time to get that theme out to everybody, all that they're going to see is, hey, you banned all of these Venezuelans and you want to send them back and you're sending people to El Salvador. Meanwhile, the white people can settle with no problem. You're racist. And regardless whether I get the other side of the story to them or not, whether you guys get the other side of the story to them or not, no importa carajo. The theme is already in place. They're going to say, you know what, you Republicans let me down. I'm going to vote for the other guy next time. And the end result, ladies and gentlemen, mark my words, will be that the House of Representatives loses the midterms. The Republicans literally snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Congratulations, you effing idiot, you fucking idiots.
Big dummy.
You played yourself. What the hell were you thinking? I would have shut it down for everybody else, including the Afrikaners. Again, sorry, we're full. We're full. Now, could we potentially recover from this? There is 15 months left until the midterms begin, at least until early voting begins. But truthfully,
I doubt it.
And somewhere, Herbert the pervert.
I got a whole freezer full of popsicles.
I meant Joe Biden is sitting in the background clasping his hands. Because he might not be in power, but his party will be back in power. And that gives him an opportunity to make some moves in the background, ladies and gentlemen. With that said, I hope that you love Pablo Pacheco. Don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe, and follow me on X at Pablo_Pacheco. If you like what you see, feel free to donate to the show by sending me a cash app at $JPACHJR1980. Again, that is $JPACHJR1980. $JPACHJR1980, and support the Burger Fund. Also, support my friends at the Fallback Production Network by purchasing some merchandise today at their Shopify store. Fallback USA, the number 2.myshopify.com. Fallback USA, the number 2.myshopify.com. Fallback USA, the number 2.myshopify.com. With that said, I'm Juan Pacheco, signing off, where we give the left
emotional damage.
Why do you think there is a disconnect for you with men right now?
Well, let me tell you, you can look at this audience and you can see that there are people of every background and gender who are showing up by the thousands. And I think it is because they...
Why do you think there is a disconnect for you with men right now?
Well, let me tell you, you can look at this audience and you can see that there are people of every background and gender who are showing up by the thousands. And I think it is because they know I intend to be a president for all Americans. And that is how I'm campaigning.
Shut up, bitch!